Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to a new video. Welcome to my July wrap up. I'm so excited to do this video. I'm excited to put my books back on my shelves. So let's just jump right into it. I read 9 books in July. I read a lot of fantasy. I read a few romances and a classic here and there, but in general, July was a very fantasy heavy month. I also don't have any book rated below 3 stars this month, which is so good. Unfortunately, I did not have a 5-star read at all, but I have some really good 4.5-star reads, so that's already good enough for me. But yeah, let's get into it. Also, I was on vacation for most of July. The latter half of July, I was out on my honeymoon. So a lot of these books I actually read when I was on my honeymoon. Surprisingly, I read a lot. So let's get into it. Starting off with the first book I read, which is Gloves Off by Stephanie Archer. This is the 4th book in the Vancouver Storm series. It's a hockey romance sports series, interconnected standalones, and this is about Alexei and Georgia. This is a marriage of convenience trope. Alexei needs to get married to Georgia to secure citizenship in Canada, and Georgia needs to get her inheritance, so they get married because they have to. They don't really like each other. They got off on the wrong foot. They have perceptions and judgments on each other. That's not very good. Alexei's also a hockey player, and Georgia is the doctor of the hockey team. I initially did not like this book. The first 100 pages was a little bit hard to get through because Alexei was a grumpy, mean asshole. I swear, he was getting on my nerves. The things that he was thinking about Georgia and the way he was viewing her and judging her because of her physical appearance, I absolutely hated. However, as the book went on, I did end up really liking their romance. I did like their chemistry. I liked the banter. I really liked that Alexei realized how wrong he was about his views on Georgia. They both went over their misunderstandings, and it was really good. There wasn't a third act conflict I hated about this book, but because the beginning just arced me so much, this was a 3.5-star read. I love Stephanie Archer's romances, and I do like this series, but this book really wasn't my favorite. I also think a grumpy MMC is just not my favorite. I don't like grumpy characters. Most of the time, there's no need for them to be that mean, to treat a person that badly, and this one was just downright mean. Personally, for me, I really like Georgia's growth. I really like seeing her family dynamics and how individual she is. Yeah, overall, it was an okay read. If you like sports romances, I don't think it's gonna go wrong for you. This one was a little bit off compared to the other books in the series. I then read a fantasy series. I read the first duology of the series, and it's The Ever King and The Ever Queen by L.J. Andrews. I do own the indie copies because I bought this a long time ago. I don't know why, but I forgot they existed, and I finally picked them up. I don't know why it took me so long to pick them up. The Ever King, the first book, is about Eric, who is the Ever King. He rules the oceans and the sea, and when he was young, he was kidnapped and captured by his enemy, which are the Land Fae. He's technically called the Sea Fae, and after escaping all of that, he wants to get revenge on his enemy, so he ends up kidnapping his enemy's daughter called Livia. The first book, especially the first book, Ever King, honestly surprised me. I was so into this book. I loved Eric. I loved his character. I loved seeing him grow. I loved seeing his hate turn to love, and the way he treated Livia, his obsessiveness, his possessiveness. It was absolutely so good. The chemistry was amazing. The banter was amazing. Livia honestly wasn't anything too much. I don't think she was very memorable, hence why it's a 4.5-star read. However, I went into The Ever Queen thinking I was going to really absolutely devour this duology and love the series. This one was a little bit of a letdown. I did love the first half, but after 200 pages, it started to fall flat. I felt like the plot was going nowhere, and there were some circumstances that was just way too coincidental to happen. I felt like the plot holes, it didn't really connect, is what I'm trying to say. Things popped up from nowhere, and I just did not like that. So this ended up being a 3.5-star read. I really liked the ending because it really connected to the second part of the series, the second duology of the series, which is sad because I really wanted to love The Ever Queen. I felt like this book, the beginning at least, gave me 5-star feelings. The plot twists, the reveals, they were so good. It got me gasping. I was just like, oh my god, this is crazy. I still really like the series. I'll probably pick up the second part of this duology, which is, I think, the third book, The Mist Thief. I'm not too sure. It got picked up, so the release dates are a little bit all over the place. But yeah, I do highly recommend this if you guys want a good romantasy to like binge through. Technically, you don't need to read the next parts of the series. I highly recommend this. It's a duology. It's short. It's sweet. It's fast. I read Animal Farm by George Orwell. This is a very short novella classic. I want to read 10 classics this year. I'm a romance and fantasy reader, so classics for me are a little bit difficult. That's why I'm starting off a little bit slow with a thinner classic. But I read Animal Farm. This book is basically about a group of animals who take over the farm from the human that was taking care of them. They then create a new system, a new regime, I guess you would say. I went into this kind of feeling intrigued about the storyline. It's basically a bunch of pigs who end up ruling over the animals in the farm. According to the back of the book, this is an allegorical novella that satirizes the Russian Revolution. It's a punch to Stalin and the World War II revolution, but I think that it fell a little bit flat in terms of that. It just read more like a comedic book and more of like a children's book. It got kind of repetitive by the end of it, so I rated this 3 stars. I'm happy I read it, but it's not the best classic I've read. I then read another romance. I read this when I was on my trip. I read First Time Caller by BK Boris, and I finally read this book. This is a January new release, and I finally picked it up now. I don't know why it took me so long to read this, but I do love BK Borison's writing. I've read her Love Light Farm series, and I absolutely enjoyed it. So, First Time Caller, this one you're following Aiden and Lucy. Aiden is a radio show host of a romance hotline called Heartstrings, and one day he gets a call from a kid who tells him that her mom is super single and needs to find a guy. And that mom is Lucy. Lucy is a single mom, has a 12-year-old kid called Ava. I think that specific section of the radio went viral, and they end up meeting. They end up trying to find love for Lucy, but obviously they end up falling in love in the end. I absolutely loved this book. A lot of people say it's a retelling of Sleepless in Seattle. I've never watched that romance movie before, but I really want to watch it now because I absolutely love this book. I devoured it. It was so fun to read. I couldn't stop reading this. I couldn't put this book down. I read this on a flight and I just really liked it. It was so romantic. It was so heartwarming. There was a lot of parts in this book where you learn about love and you learn about life. I love seeing so much of the positive light of love from Lucy, but I also really like seeing the pessimism from Aiden, and I think it's a really fun book. I loved Aiden's growth in this, seeing him grow his character arc, the way he views his parents and all of that, and ended up being a 4.5 star read. I did want to give this 5 stars, but I have to admit that the third act conflict did irk me a little bit, and I cannot give a 5 stars to a book that irked me. So I still really liked it. I'm excited to read the second book, which I think is coming out very soon at the end of the year, hopefully. Last but not least, I read a huge fantasy series. I read Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Rorick. I only own the first book. I have purchased the second, third, and fourth books because I really like this series and I want to collect it. This book follows Scarlet. She's an assassin and she's one of the most feared trio of the continent they live in. And Scarlet is a human living in a mortal world. There are Fae in this book, but the Fae are hated and feared. One day, something happens to her. I will not tell you what it is. It's a secret. She ends up having to face certain situations. She has to go on a quest to figure out the truth of her heritage. When I read this, it was a little bit reminiscent of a certain book series, but by the end of it, I think it has its own flair, and I think it's a really fun book. This ended up being a 4-star read, and it's a really strong first book to a fantasy series. I like getting to know all the characters in the first book, the main characters, the side characters, and then we get into Lady of Shadows, which is the second book. We really dived into the fantasy world. There were a lot of reveals that went on, which made it so fun, but in terms of like character growth and stuff, there wasn't really a lot of it. I also was a little bit disappointed and mad with Scarlet in this book, so this ended up being also a 4 stars. The ending was a cliffhanger that really gutted me, so I jumped right into the third book, and this book was a 3.5 stars. The plot was moving, but the characters were not moving at all. I also felt like there were a few plot lines that were too coincidental that happened and I didn't see coming from a mile away, not because I wasn't introspective enough when I was reading this book, but because I wouldn't have ever thought it would work that way. However, I went into Lady of Embers because, again, Lady of Ashes ended off in a cliffhanger, and I really like Lady of Embers. It was so fun. I saw a lot of character growth in the fourth book. There were a lot of situations that required painful sacrifices, and it got me tearing up a little bit. This was a 4-star read because the ending, honestly, got me a little mad. There are certain tropes in like fantasy books that I absolutely hate, and the fourth book had that. And I was just like, Why does it have to be that way? I really do not understand. And obviously I'm hoping the 5th book is going to be good, but I decided to take a step back from the series because I don't want to like fall into a slump or anything. So yeah, I did enjoy this 5-book series. There are things about the series I would love to change, but overall it is a very good 5-book series and it's very bingeable. It's very easy to read. For the most part, I'm not bored at all by this book. I read these on plane rides and I feel like they're so easy to read on the plane. If you want a bingeable fantasy series, I recommend reading this. But that is it for the 9 books I read in July. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this wrap up. I feel like I've been talking, according to the camera, I've been talking for 20 minutes. My legs are numb. I've been sitting down here for 20 minutes. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed. I promise to be more consistent. I am finally back, okay? I'm back, guys. More videos will be coming up soon. I'm gonna have reading vlog, reading journal updates, bookish things going on. I am also active on TikTok. I'm trying to be active on Instagram. I'm trying my best, guys, but I am a lot more active on TikTok. So check me out on there as well. Everything is in the description box. And that is it for today. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.